I've invented a brand new state-of-the-art pitching stat. It's called outs made. It tells you how many outs a pitcher made in the season, which is their job. Their job is to get hitters out. Now, the astute among you might point out that this stat is just innings pitched times 3, and that's true. Innings are 3 outs. So if I tell you pitcher A tossed 180 innings while pitcher B tossed 150, instead of, well, what's their ERA, what's their xFIP, what's their F4, can you please let me out of this locker? How about just taking the guy who made 90 more outs? If you want to run an MLB team, there's one question you have to constantly answer. How are we gonna get 1,400 plus innings from 13 roster spots this year? It's a simple math problem, yet the solution is anything but. Sometimes you get to that 9th inning and it looks like this. And sometimes you get to the 9th inning and, oof, oh boy. It averages out to about 110 innings per roster spot, which sounds doable, but the majority of those roster spots are for relievers who average between 50 to 80 innings per year. Then what do you do if you have pitchers in the rotation who are on a strict pitch count or an innings limit because they're coming back from an injury, or they're bad the 3rd time through the order, or they're just plain young and adjusting to a full MLB season workload? The children, they yearn for their innings. You're gonna need a workhorse, and this is where vocabulary becomes important. This video is about the Chad Innings Eater, the handsome alpha male of the rotation. Men want to be him, women don't watch these videos. His job is to absorb innings to keep the other 12 rostered pitchers fresh. And while all workhorses are innings eaters, not all innings eaters are workhorses. Sandy Alcantara's 2022 Cy Young campaign was a workhorse season. He had 228 2/3 innings pitched, aka 686 outs made. And as the 1,400 inning, 13 roster spots problem becomes more and more difficult to crack, Innings Eater has gone from being an insult to a compliment. You're probably wondering which player this video is about, so I'll just go ahead and tell you. It's about Mike Leake, who was drafted by the Reds in 2009 and won a rotation spot with Cincinnati in 2010 without ever having played in their minor league system, and proceeded to devour innings. ERA Plus is a handy stat for differentiating between a workhorse versus innings eater. It's adjusted based on the offensive environment, so 100 is always average and higher is better. Mike Leake averaged 183 innings per year throughout the 2010s, meaning he made the 11th most outs of the decade, and he did so with a 99 ERA+, just the tiniest bit worse than the league average. He was never an all-star, never a down-ballot Cy Young vote getter, but he was also never truly bad. You might not like it. You might not like 90-mile-per-hour fastballs and 16% strikeout rates, but this is what a Chad Innings Eater looks like. There have been some impressive innings eaters over the course of MLB history. Livan Hernandez amassed over 3,000 innings with a 95 ERA+. Joe Niekro, brother of Hall of Famer Phil, used a knuckleball of his own to win over 200 games and toss over 3,500 frames at a career 98 ERA+. Unfortunately, Mike Leake opted out of the COVID 2020 season and never returned, meaning this video is now actually about Rick Porcello, who had eerily similar numbers to Leake apart from the fact he inexplicably won the Cy Young Award in 2016 with the Red Sox. Porcello was a qualified pitcher, meaning he threw at least 1 inning per team game in every season, except for 2020. Back in 2010, 45 different pitchers tossed at least 200 innings. This included esteemed innings, I'm already running out of synonyms, masticators, Carl Pavano, and Jake Westbrook. So while 45 pitchers tossed 200 innings in 2010, last year only 45 pitchers qualified for the ERA title by throwing the requisite 162 1/3 innings. Qualified is the new 200, so maybe 150 should be the new qualified. 30 starts of 5 innings apiece seems like a reasonable bare minimum. This year, the league leader in games started will probably pitch in about 33 games. Nobody has started 35 since Yuli Shashin in 2018, and nobody's started 36 since Roy Halladay and Greg Maddux in 2003, which involved multiple starts on 3 days rest, which simply doesn't happen anymore. Back to Rick Porcello, he hasn't pitched since 2020, so this video is now about Cole Swervin' Irvin, baby. Where my Irv head's at. But even Cole Irvin's run with the A's between 2021 and 2022 pales in comparison to the greatest Chad Innings Eater season of all. In 1938, Bobo Newsome of the St. Louis Browns led MLB in games started, complete games, innings, hits allowed, homers allowed, and batters faced. With 186 earned runs, it was the last time any pitcher allowed 180 runs in a season, or 170, or 160, or 150. Now, Bobo was from small-town Hartsville, South Carolina, where he attended Hartsville High School. Only one big leaguer in the last 150 years of professional baseball was also a Hartsville Red Fox, and he just so happens to be Bobo's successor, the true innings consumer of our time. It's Jordan, eating innings by the piles, Lyles. The great thing about the Chad Innings Eater is that it can be a rotating title, like Dread Pirate Roberts, Dalai Lama, or Dodgers second baseman. It's whoever around the league is consistently stuffing their face full of innings. And now we know innings are simply 3 outs made. We can point out that Jordan Lyles has made more outs than Max Scherzer, Max Fried, Zach Gallen, and Julio Urias since the start of the 2020 season. You ever heard of quality starts? At least 6 innings pitched with 3 or fewer runs allowed? Well, how about quantity starts? 5 innings pitched while allowing at least 5 runs. These are the type of starts that say, hey bud, things didn't quite go your way, but you know what? You fought through it. Since 2020, Lyles is tied for 5th in the league in quantity starts, with an interesting crew ahead of him: Corbin, Cole, Bumgarner, Lynn, and Nola. These are name-brand pitchers who have all been all-stars and finished top 5 in Cy Young voting at some point. They make big money, they drive big cars, everybody knows them. It's like they're a movie star. And then there's Jordan Lyles, the guy you go to for cheap innings. Statistically, he's the most similar to Patrick Corbin over the past few years, but Lyles is making about 1/3 of his paycheck. And that's the only real difference between being perceived as a washed-up veteran versus Chad Innings Eater. How did we reach the point where 180 innings pitched made you some sort of innings glutton? Well, the population of 200 inning arms declined sharply in the mid-2010s, just like my marriage. Teams were growing weary of the 3rd time through the order penalty, where lineups see increased success when facing a starting pitcher for the 3rd time in a game. For example, in 2023, hitters increased their on-base percentage by 4 points facing a pitcher for the 2nd time, but 12 points when facing off a 3rd time. The solution was to pull the starter earlier, increasing the share of bullpen innings because relievers collectively had better ERAs than starters in the mid-2010s. But this increased workload taxed the efficiency of bullpens, completely erasing that disparity by the end of the decade, meaning innings eaters like Jordan Lyles are back on the menu in the 2020s, which is now. We've got to give these bullpens a break. Even if Jordan Lyles has a 7 ERA his 3rd time through the lineup, are you serious? In the history of Major League Baseball, there have been 763 pitchers who started at least 200 career games. Of those 763 pitchers, only one has been sub-replacement level, and it's Jordan Lyles. So what is Jordan Lyles good, or at least above average, at? Well, he gets good extension off the mound thanks to his 6'5" frame, his walk rate is decent, and his curveball has more vertical drop than most. But otherwise, honestly, that's about it. His true talent is slurping down innings, licking his greasy fingers for every last out. But is volume alone worth rewarding? This was actually litigated by American League Cy Young voters back in 2018. The two candidates were Justin Verlander and Blake Snell. Verlander made 100 more outs than Snell, but allowed 22 more earned runs, meaning his additional contributions amounted to 33 innings of 6 ERA ball. Snell ended up winning, and while the argument was that the Astros could have summoned 33 better innings from their strong minor league system, they would have had to shuffle the roster to do so. So who is the anti-Jordan Lyles? Well, in 2022, it was Chris Archer. As part of his strictly regimented game plan with the Twins, he never pitched more than 5 innings or tossed more than 90 pitches in a start. In 16 of his 25 starts, he threw between 4 and 5 innings while allowing 2 runs or fewer. He had a sub-2 ERA in those starts, and yet the Twins went 6-10 in those games. Obviously, the run support wasn't great, but this strategy also puts a great strain on the bullpen to get most of the 27 outs needed to win. For example, in his first start of the year, Archer cruised versus the Dodgers through 4, but his day ended there, and Minnesota proceeded to use 7 relievers who combined to allow 7 runs as Los Angeles won 7-2. And while the Twins went 6-10 in the 1.91 ERA Chris Archer starts, the Orioles sported a winning record across 32 Jordan Lyles starts where he finished with a 4.42 ERA. It wasn't always pretty, but consistently pitching into the 6th and 7th innings meant getting to use only the best available relievers if the game was still close. He led Baltimore outright in innings pitched, wins, and strikeouts, just as he had with the Texas Rangers in 2021. Only 2 other pitchers led their respective teams in all 3 of those categories back-to-back: Sandy Alcantara and Shohei Ohtani. So, pitching deep into games helps the bullpen. Wow, incredible insight, definitely worth $5 on Patreon to support such revolutionary thinking. But I also think having a Jordan Lyles type around, especially on a rebuilding team, helps inexperienced starting pitchers by giving them permission to struggle. Here's what I mean by that. On August 20th, 2021, Dane Dunning had a bad day. He couldn't make it through 5 innings as an Alex Verdugo 2-run double chased him from the game, with the Rangers losing 5-0. Having those types of games consistently is unsustainable. It's too much of a bullpen burden. So, what did Jordan Lyles do the next day? Go out there and pitch 7 innings of 1-run ball. A year later, Tyler Wells of the Orioles had a stinker of his own in the first game of a 3-game set versus the Tigers. He allowed 5 runs in just 3 innings of work. What did Jordan Lyles do in the series finale? Throw a freaking complete game. See, Wells and Dunning were able to keep getting big league opportunities to figure things out because guys like Lyles were gonna munch. Now in 2023, Dunning and Wells are good pitchers on good Rangers and Orioles teams, while Lyles has moved on to the not-so-good Royals to eat innings on a budget once again. The Royals have lost in each of Lyles' first 15 starts of the 2023 season, but they'll still trot him out there every 5 games. You could say it's a thankless job, but Tyler Wells was thankful for his time with Lyles. He praised the veteran for his mentorship, which was based on the principles of going deep into games and giving the team a chance to win every time. Wells also showed up to Camden Yards in a shirt depicting Lyles as the best dad ever. Like all dads, he's the big guy that finishes your plate after you've had enough. And teams need those guys. Since starting pitching usage went haywire in 2015, there have been 16 teams without a single 150-inning pitcher, all of which finished below 500. That's right, even the Tampa Bay Rays, famous for successfully spreading out their innings, have had at least one guy toss 150 since they got good in 2008. In a solid rotation, you hope that innings leader is a legit ace, but for everyone else, the Chad Innings Eater still exists in some form. And those arms aren't always easy to find. Since the 2023 season opened, 40 MLB pitchers have already missed time with either elbow or shoulder injuries. 11 of those have undergone Tommy John surgery, including Robbie Ray, Luis Garcia, Jeffrey Springs, and of course, Jacob deGrom. In a league dominated by roster churn, you have to respect pitchers who can get through innings while occupying only one roster spot. And that's Jordan Lyles. He won't hold the title forever, but right now he truly is the Chad Innings Eater. Big thank you to my newest patrons. To see your name here, head on over to patreon.com/foolishbaseball.